Let's move on to psychoanalytical theories of child development. Even though these theories lack empirical confirmation, they had a huge impact on the fields of psychology and psychoanalysis. One of the most important ideas was realizing that childhood experience can have long-lasting effects on humans' life. This was a major shift in how we think about childhood. Freud's theory of personality development is well known in psychology. However, it's been a topic of debate both during Freud's lifetime and in modern psychology. It's important to note that this theory shouldn't be used for self-diagnosis. Freud's theory is based on his own childhood recollection and the memories of his patients. Critics, however, argue that the memories and fantasies of childhood seduction his patients reported were likely constructs that Freud created and imposed on them. Freud believed that life revolves around tension and pleasure. A key concept in his theory is libido, or sexual energy, which drives our behavior. It's important to note that Freud used sexual in a very broad sense to mean all pleasurable actions and thoughts. According to Freud, humans are born polymorphous perverse, meaning infants can find sexual pleasure from any part of their bodies and any object. Child development, he argued, is guided by libido moving to new erogenous zones. For a child to successfully move from one stage to the next, they need to get the right amount of physical pleasure from each erogenous zone. If they don't get enough stimulation, the libidinal energy can become fixated on the current erogenous zone. This can lead to difficult behavior in adulthood, bad habits, and even psychological disorders. The first stage of development is the oral stage, which lasts from the birth to about 1.5 years. During this time, pleasure is centered on food and sucking, pacifier, fingers, etc. Since infants rely on their caregivers for food, they also learn to trust and feel comfortable through this oral stimulation. The main challenge at this stage is weaning. The child needs to become less dependent on their caregivers. If they get stuck on this stage, Freud believed it could lead to issues with dependency or aggression. Oral fixation can cause problems with smoking, drinking, biting nails, oral sexual practices, dependence-prone personality, aggression. The next stage is the anal stage, that lasts from 1.5 years to 3 years. During the anal stage, Freud believed that the main focus of the child's energy was on controlling bladder and bowel movements. The big challenge here is toilet training. Kids need to learn how to manage their bodily needs. Mastering the skill leads to a sense of accomplishment and independence. Freud thought that success at this stage depends a lot on how parents handle toilet training. Parents who use praise and rewards when their child uses the toilet at the right time encourage positive outcomes, helping their child feel capable and productive. On the flip side, Freud suggested that if parents are too lenient, it could lead to anal explosive personality, where the person might be messy, wasteful, or destructive. If parents are too strict or start toilet training too early, Freud believed it could resist in an anal retentive personality, where the person might become stringent, orderly, rigid, and obsessive. During the phallic stage, Freud suggested that the main focus of a child's energy is on the genitals. At this age, kids start to notice the differences between boys and girls. Freud also believed that boys begin to see their father as rival for the mother's affection. This is known as Oedipus complex, where boys want to possess their mother and replace their father. However, they also fear punishment from their father for these feelings, which Freud called castration anxiety. For girls, Freud thought that they experience penis in Y. Eventually, boys start to identify with their father as a way to indirectly possess the mother. For girls, Freud believed that penis and Y was never fully resolved, and that all women remain somewhat fixated on this stage. Freud thought that if a child fixates on this stage, it could lead to adult personalities that are overly vain, exhibitionistic, and sexually aggressive. For men, a phallic fixation might result in anxiety about sexual performance, a need for reassurance and validation, or a tendency to be overly assertive or aggressive. For women, a fixation at the phallic stage could lead to a desire to dominate men, rivalry with other women, or a need for male attention and approval. The latency stage is the fourth stage of psychosexual development, spanning from 6 years to puberty. During this period, Freud hypothesized that sexual impulses are temporarily suppressed, and the child must find gratification in external activities such as schooling, friendships, and hobbies to redirect the energy of their libidos. During this stage, the child learns to adapt to reality and also begins the process of what Freud calls infantile amnesia. This means the child starts to repress the earliest traumatic, orally sexual, or unpleasant memories. According to Freud, unresolved conflicts or issues during this stage can lead to problems later on, such as difficulty expressing emotions or forming healthy relationships. The onset of puberty causes the libido to become active once again. During the final stage of psychosexual development, individuals develop a strong sexual interest in the opposite sex. During this time, people start to become sexually mature and begin to explore their sexual feelings and desires. For Freud, the proper outlet of the sexual instincts in adults was through heterosexual intercourse. However, fixation and conflict might prevent this, potentially leading to sexual perversions. For example, if an individual fixates at the oral stage, they may derive sexual pleasure primarily from kissing and oral sex rather than sexual intercourse. According to Freud, if individuals have unresolved conflicts or issues during this stage, it can lead to problems such as sexual dysfunction, difficulties forming healthy relationships, or other emotional issues. Now, Let's turn our attention to the theory of psychosocial development. Erikson's theory was based on studying people from diverse cultural backgrounds who showed typical healthy behavior. Unlike Freud, Erikson highlighted the positive and healthy aspects of personality. There are 8 developmental stages from birth to old age. Each stage presents a unique conflict that serves as a turning point in development. Individuals who successfully resolve these conflicts gain psychological traits that will serve them well for the rest of their life. In contrast, those who fail to resolve their conflicts may experience a reduced ability to complete further stages. It is possible to resolve conflicts from early stages later. The first stage of development, which begins at birth and lasts until approximately 18 months of age, is characterized by a lack of trust in the world around the infant. During this period, the infant looks to their primary caregiver for stability and consistency of care. If the caregiver is reliable, consistent, and nurturing, the child will develop a sense of security and trust in the world and in others. If not, the child will develop a sense of mistrust and insecurity. The second stage of Erik Erikson's psychosocial development theory is about the conflict between autonomy and shame and doubt. This stage usually happens when children are between 18 months and 3 years old. During this time, kids are focused on developing a sense of personal control over their physical skills and gaining a sense of independence. If parents encourage and support them in their growing independence, they'll feel more comfortable making decisions, exploring their surroundings, and developing a sense of self-control. On the flip side, if children are overly controlled or criticized, they might start to feel ashamed of their autonomy and doubt their abilities. The third stage of Erik Erikson's theory of psychosocial development focuses on the conflict between initiative and guilt. This stage typically occurs when children start interacting regularly with other kids at school. Play is a key part of this stage because it helps children develop their interpersonal skills by initiating activities. When caregivers provide children with encouragement and support they need to take the initiative, children will begin to think for themselves, formulate plans, and execute them. This helps foster a sense of purpose. However, if caregivers discourage independent activities or criticize their efforts, children might feel guilty about their desires and initiatives. Erikson's fourth psychosocial crisis focuses on the development of competence versus the experience of inferiority. This stage typically occurs between the ages of 5 and 12. During this time, children start to assess their abilities and worth by comparing themselves to their peers. When parents and teachers encourage children to develop their skills, they gain a sense of industry, a feeling of competence and belief in their abilities. They learn the value of working and cooperating with others and understanding how to apply their skills to complete tasks. This fosters a sense of confidence in their ability to achieve goals. In contrast, if children receive negative feedback or aren't allowed to demonstrate their abilities, they may develop a sense of inferiority. They might start to feel that they aren't as good as their peers or that their efforts aren't valued, leading to a lack of self-confidence and a feeling of inadequacy. The fifth stage of Erik Erikson's theory is identity versus role confusion crisis, which occurs typically from about 12 to 18 years old. During this stage, adolescents actively seek to establish a sense of self and personal identity by thoroughly examining their values, beliefs, and aspirations. Adolescents who are supported in their exploration and given the freedom to try out different roles will emerge from this stage with a strong sense of self and a feeling of independence and control. However, if they are restricted or overwhelmed, they may experience role confusion. This means being unsure about one's place in the world, values, and future direction. They might struggle to identify their purpose or path, leading to confusion about their personal identity. The sixth stage of Erikson's theory is the conflict between intimacy and isolation. This stage occurs during young adulthood, typically between the ages of 18 and 40 years. The primary challenge during this time is to establish intimate, loving relationships with others. Those who successfully navigate this stage form close bonds and are comfortable with mutual dependency. However, if individuals struggle to form meaningful, intimate relationships, they may experience isolation, leading to feelings of loneliness, alienation, and exclusion. The seventh stage of Erikson's theory is generativity versus stagnation. This stage occurs during middle adulthood, typically between the ages of 40 and 65. During this time, individuals focus on building their lives primarily through parenting, mentoring, leadership roles, or through creating output that adds value to society. If individuals feel they are making valuable contributions to the world, they will undoubtedly feel a sense of generativity. They find purpose in their efforts and feel productive and involved. However, if individuals feel they are not making a positive impact or are not involved in productive or creative tasks, they may experience stagnation. This can lead to feelings of unproductiveness, self-absorption, lack of growth, and a sense of emptiness. The eighth and final stage of Erikson's theory is ego integrity versus despair conflict. This stage begins at approximately 65 years and continues until death. During this time, people reflect on their achievements and develop integrity if they see themselves as having led a successful life. Individuals who feel they have lived a fulfilling and meaningful life will experience ego integrity. This is characterized by a sense of acceptance of their life as it was, the ability to find coherence and purpose in their experiences, and a sense of wisdom and fulfillment. On the other hand, if individuals feel regretful about their past, believe they have made poor decisions, or feel they have failed to achieve their life goals, they may experience despair. which involves feelings of regret, bitterness and disappointment with one's life, and a fear of impending death.